chosen one, freeze your spirit and listen. In the invisible realm, I see people preparing your funeral. They have looked at your silence, your setbacks, and your scars, and they have whispered the verdict. It is over. They are done. But God told me to intercept you right now with a divine secret. You are not being buried, you are being planted. The failure they see is just your camouflage. It is a Trojan horse designed by God to hide your power until the appointed time. While they are laughing at your disguise, God is looking at your root system and He is beaming with pride. He is proud because you did not quit in the dark. And now the disguise is coming off. The king has overruled the verdict, and the very people who thought you were finished are about to witness a resurrection so shocking it will leave them trembling. You did not miss your moment. You were just waiting for the signal, and this is the signal. God just showed me something about you. He showed me the people who have been whispering behind your back. He showed me the pity looks you have been getting from family members who think you have lost your way. He showed me the exact moment you stood in front of your bathroom mirror, and a dark, heavy thought whispered in your ear. It is over. I am done. My best days are behind me. Let us be honest for a moment. The hardest part of this season has not been the lack of money or even the loneliness. The hardest part has been the silent humiliation. I see you sitting in your car in the driveway, gripping the steering wheel, taking a deep breath before you walk into your own house. You have to put on the mask. You have to prepare yourself for those innocent questions that feel like knives. How is business going? Are you seeing anyone yet? Have you found a job? And you have to smile and say, it is going well. But inside you are screaming. You look at your peers and they seem to be accelerating. They are buying houses. They are getting promoted, and you feel like you are stuck in quicksand. The enemy has been planting a specific lie in your mind. He tells you that God has benched you. He tells you that you have been disqualified. But look at Psalm 31:12. King David said, I am forgotten as a dead man out of mind. I am like a broken vessel. Notice what David said. He did not say, I am dead. He said, I am forgotten as a dead man. To the world, David looked finished. He was anointed to be king, but he was living in a cave. No palace, no army, no crown. But that was a lie. David was not dead. He was in development. The cave was not his grave. It was his training ground. This is exactly where you are right now. Human perception is not divine reality. Just because they stopped clapping does not mean God stopped working. In fact, God does His best work in the dark. That pressure you feel in your chest right now, that heaviness that wakes you up at 3 a.m., that is not the feeling of death. That is the feeling of compression. You are a spring being pushed down. To the unspiritual eye, it looks like you are being crushed. But to the spiritual eye, you are being loaded with potential energy. The lower you go, the higher you are about to launch. Why would God allow this? Is He punishing you? That voice telling you that this is a punishment that is a lie from the pit of hell designed to make you abort your destiny. The reason you are hidden right now has nothing to do with punishment. It has everything to do with protection. It has everything to do with a strategy so advanced that if the enemy knew what you were actually becoming in the dark, he would have killed you when you were a child. You are not being punished. You are being preserved. And the reason God has allowed everyone to think you are done is because He is setting up the greatest ambush your bloodline has ever seen. Your current situation is actually a high-level military clearance known as the Grave Clothes Protocol. This is a three-phase spiritual strategy God uses exclusively for those who are assigned to shift generations. The first phase is isolation. God deliberately cuts your supply lines to the world. The phone stops ringing. The invitations stop coming. It feels like rejection. But it is not rejection. It is redirection. God is severing your dependence on human approval so that your ear becomes tuned to His frequency alone. The second phase is incubation. This is the dark room. A photograph cannot be developed in the light. If you expose film to sunlight too early, the image is destroyed. You are in the dark room right now. The image of your future self is being chemically burned into your spirit. This is where your character is catching up to your calling. The third phase is concealment. This is when you are actually ready, but God still keeps you hidden. This is Moses being hidden in the basket. This is Jesus being hidden in Egypt. Why? Because the enemy always tries to kill the deliverer in their infancy. He wrapped you in the grave clothes of obscurity so the enemy would ignore you thinking you were dead while you were actually growing stronger by the day. This brings us to the story of Lazarus in John 11. Jesus loved Lazarus. And yet when Jesus heard Lazarus was sick, He did not rush to heal him. He waited until Lazarus died. He waited until they wrapped him in grave clothes. By the time Jesus arrived, Lazarus had been dead for 4 days. Why 4? In the Jewish tradition, there was a belief that the spirit hovered around the body for 3 days. If someone came back on day 3, the skeptics could argue it was just a coma. But the 4th day was the day of corruption. The body begins to decompose. On the 4th day, hope is scientifically impossible. God waited for you to reach your 4th day. He waited until your reputation was dead. He waited until your bank account was decomposing. He waited until you stank to the high heavens of failure. Why? So that when you walk out of that grave, no one will be able to say, "He just got lucky." When you rise from a 4th day death, there is only one explanation. It was God. The magnitude of the miracle requires the magnitude of the death. The deeper the hole, the higher the glory. You are perfectly positioned for a Tetartos miracle. Let me tell you about someone who lived this protocol. For the sake of privacy, let us call him David. 14 months ago, David was standing in the parking lot of a company he had dedicated 7 years of his life to. He was holding a cardboard box filled with pictures of his kids and a stapler. He had just been fired. Not just fired, but humiliated. He was escorted out by security in front of his entire team because of a false accusation he could not disprove. He sat in his car for 45 minutes, unable to turn the key. His phone, which used to ring 50 times a day, went completely silent. The people he had mentored stopped liking his posts. He was in the tomb. But David made a decision. Instead of launching a public defense, instead of ranting on social media, he went into strategic concealment. He embraced the silence. For 14 months, nobody knew what he was doing. His family thought he was depressed. His former colleagues thought he was finished. But in the dark room of that incubation season, God was downloading a new blueprint into his spirit. David started building a consultancy firm from his kitchen table. Fast forward exactly 14 months. The phone rang. It was the CEO of the biggest competitor to the company that had fired him. They did not offer him a job, they offered him a partnership. He walked into a boardroom to sign a contract that was 3 times his previous salary, with an equity stake that secured his children's future. The very people who escorted him out 14 months ago now have to pay his firm to consult for them. That is the Lazarus effect. That is what happens when you let the grave clothes protocol finish its work. This is the promise of Isaiah 45:3. I will give you the treasures of darkness and hidden riches of secret places. The treasures are not in the spotlight. They are in the darkness. The darkness you are in right now is not an empty cave. It is a vault, and you are the only one with the combination. Now here is the revelation that is going to shift your entire existence. You have been looking at the rejection, the closed doors, and the silence and calling it a setback. But you are reading the map upside down. God did not allow you to look like a failure because He had abandoned you. He allowed you to look like a failure because He was smuggling you in. You are a Trojan horse. The Greeks could not breach the walls of Troy with force. So they built a giant wooden horse, hid their best soldiers inside, and left it at the gates as a symbol of defeat. The Trojans, thinking they had won, dragged the horse inside their own walls. They lowered their defenses. They celebrated their victory, not knowing that they had just invited their own destruction into the heart of their city. Chosen one, look at your life. For the last season, you have looked like that wooden horse, harmless, static, defeated. To the spiritual forces of darkness, you look like debris. And because you look like a failure, the enemy has made a fatal mistake. He has stopped monitoring you. Stopped. When you were shining bright, the enemy had every gun pointed at you. But the moment you hit rock bottom, the enemy said, "Target neutralized." He took his eyes off you. He lowered his shields. He let you drift right past his defenses. And that is exactly what God wanted. Your obscurity was not a penalty box. It was a cloak of invisibility. God wrapped you in the camouflage of failure so you could penetrate systems, industries, and territories that you never could have entered if you looked like a threat. You are not on the outside looking in. You are already inside the gates. This is the strategy of the cross. Look at 1 Corinthians 2:8. If they had known, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. The crucifixion looked like the ultimate defeat, but the cross was a trap. By killing the seed, the enemy was triggering the harvest. The enemy played himself, and he has played himself with you too. He thought that by stripping you of your reputation, he was destroying your future. But all he did was help God hide you until you were fully developed. But listen closely. The element of surprise is your greatest advantage, but it is about to expire. The moment you step out of that horse, the enemy is going to panic. There are 7 specific attacks that are going to be launched against you. The first is the mocking silence. You finally launch the business. You're expecting fireworks, but instead you get crickets. The enemy whispers, "Nobody cares, you made it all up." This is the exact tactic used against Nehemiah. The strategy to defeat this: do not stop building. Treat the silence as a sign that you are on the right track. The second is the past dredging. The enemy tries to disqualify you by bringing up your old files. He acts like a corrupt lawyer waving your past criminal record in your face. You use the dead man defense. You say that person died in the grave clothes protocol. I am a new creation. The third is the identity whisper. It asks one question. Who do you think you are? You feel like an imposter. The counter strategy. I do not belong here based on my resume. I belong here based on my assignment. I was sent. The fourth is the false friend return. As soon as the light of God begins to hit your life, your phone will light up with messages from people who ignored you for 3 years. They are not drawn to your heart. They are drawn to your heat. Love them from a distance, but keep the gate to your inner circle locked. The fifth is the comparison trap. Just as you get your breakthrough, the enemy will ensure that you see someone else doing it bigger. Do not compare your chapter 1 to their chapter 10. The sixth is the distraction offer. The enemy will tempt you with something good that is not God. Learn the Nehemiah. No, I am doing a great work so that I cannot come down. The seventh is the character assassination. When the enemy realizes he cannot stop your work, he will try to kill your name. This brings us to the dignity protocol. A king never comes down from his throne to argue with a peasant in the mud. Look at Psalm 23:5. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. God does not remove the enemies before he feeds you. He sets a banquet table right in the middle of the battlefield. Your greatest weapon is your peace. You do not engage. You do not explain. You do not entertain. You keep your eyes on the chef. Let them watch. Let them talk. Their words cannot poison your food unless you listen to them. Let me tell you about Sarah. 3 years ago, Sarah was passed over for a promotion she deserved. Instead of promoting her, the company hired an outsider who was half as qualified and asked Sarah to train him. It was humiliating. Every day she had to sit there and teach this man how to do the job that should have been hers. The enemy whispered to her, "Quit, cause a scene, sabotage him." But Sarah was walking in the dignity protocol. She refused to lower her standard. She trained him with excellence. She sat at the table in the presence of her enemy, and she ate her food with grace. She did not complain. She did not gossip. She just worked. For 3 years, it looked like she was losing. It looked like the bad guy won. But last Tuesday at 10 a.m., the CEO called Sarah into his office. The company had been secretly acquired by a larger corporation. The new owners had been auditing the staff for 6 months. They noticed that while the manager was taking the credit, Sarah was doing the work. They noticed her character. They noticed her dignity. In one meeting, they fired the manager who had taken her spot. And they offered Sarah a position not as a manager, but as a regional director. She skipped 3 levels of management in one morning. Her salary did not just double, it tripled. The vindication was not immediate, but it was absolute. When she walked out of that office, the very people who had pitied her were now asking her for guidance. This is what happens when you trust the timing of the Trojan horse. This is what happens when you refuse to break character in the dark. But I need to talk to your heart. There is a lie that has been festering in your soul. It is the lie that God is disappointed in you. Hear the word of the Lord from Zephaniah 3:17. The Lord your God is in your midst, a mighty one who will save. He will rejoice over you with gladness. He will quiet you by His love. He will exult over you with loud singing. The Creator of the universe is not just tolerating you, He is singing over you. God is proud of you, not because you are perfect, but because you are still here. He saw you when the tears were streaming down your face in the shower, and you still chose to pray. He saw you when you had $12 in your bank account, and you still chose to be generous. The world judges you by your trophies, but God judges you by your scars. You think you failed because you fell down. God says, no, you won because you got back up. Father, in the mighty name of Jesus, I bring this chosen one before you right now. I seal the identity of the Trojan horse over their spirit. I break the agreement they made with the spirit of failure. I decree that what looked like defeat was actually divine deployment. I declare that they are not behind, they are inside. They are positioned perfectly behind enemy lines, ready to strike. I bind the spirit of shame. I bind the mocking silence. I command those voices to be silent in the presence of the King. I tear off the grave clothes of the old season. The isolation is over. The incubation is complete. Lazarus, come forth. I seal the dignity protocol over their emotions. From this day forward, they will have the power to sit at the table in the presence of their enemies and eat in peace. I speak to the timeline of their life. I decree a 40-day acceleration. For the next 40 days, I command the hidden things to be revealed. I command the phone to ring. I command the contracts to be released. I command the suddenly of God to crash into their circumstances. Let the shock wave of your goodness hit their life so hard that even the skeptics will have to confess that this is the finger of God. It is done. The verdict is overruled. The seal is set. You are no longer hidden. You are dangerous. You are no longer a victim. You are a weapon. Walk in your authority. Keep your peace. And watch God shock everyone who thought you were done. You are dismissed from the wilderness. Go.